Welcome, everybody, to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. Great to be with you again today as we continue another day in the era of the Great Restoration. The Great Restoration. That's what I'm calling it, because we're restoring the fundamental values that made America the greatest nation in the history of mankind. By the way, I am on Rumble. So if you are on Rumble, I think my handle under Rumble is the real Bishop E.W. Jackson, or the real E.W. Jackson. Man, that's terrible. What is it? But at any rate, look me up on Rumble. Go to Rumble, go to search engine, put in E.W. Jackson, or the real E.W. Jackson. I think that's what it's under, the real E.W. Jackson. But anyway, I'm on Rumble. Again, I don't have but a handful of followers on Rumble because I really haven't given it a whole lot of attention. And I'm also on TikTok now. So Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. This program doesn't air on Twitter. But I guess I got to get a handle on, because you can do some videotaping on Twitter, right? Twitter, Rumble, TikTok. My websites, E.W. Jackson for America, standamerica.us. And BishopEWJackson.tv. So I'm on, am I still on Roku? I don't know. The person I had doing that left a long time ago. So I'm not even sure what the Roku situation is, or whether we are live streaming to Roku, or how that works. I don't have a full-time social media person working for me. And so it is kind of catch as catch can, and a couple of consultants trying to keep me caught up. So pray for us, okay? As I said before, we need a lot more resources to do this job as effectively as I'd like to do it. But we're going to keep doing what God has called us to do as efficiently as we can with what God provides, knowing that He has more in store. Okay, the word says, may the Lord increase you more and more. We're believing that God is increasing us more and more and doing the exceedingly abundant above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. So, okay, thank you. I just looking at, I usually see more responses on my Instagram page. It says, we're telling your followers that you started a live video. So, and that's on Instagram. So I'm doing something on Instagram while I'm doing this. And then, so TikTok, now Rumble is this whole video is on Rumble, but on TikTok, I'm doing a brief video after this program. So every time I do E.W. Jackson for America, I'm going to also, immediately following this program, I'm going to do a brief TikTok report, if you will. E.W. Jackson on TikTok. So, but at any rate, what I want to tell you first is that I will be in Phoenix, Arizona tomorrow at the National Association of Christian Lawmakers, NACL, which is also the chemical designation for salt, by the way, which is perfect, isn't it? National Association of Christian Lawmakers. That's going to be at the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess Hotel at 7575 East Princess Drive in Scottsdale, Arizona. I will be speaking tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow at about 3:30, somewhere in there. So if you're in the Phoenix, Arizona area, please feel free to stop by. As a matter of fact, we have, we do have an Arizona chapter, and I trust that my field directors let them know that I'm going to be in the area. So you can tell, folks, it's terrible. You know, you are watching real live television, very often completely off the cuff. I'm saying I hope that they know. Now that I've mentioned it to you, I will be sure that they will. But folks, I have been moving so fast. I tell you, I thought after the election, my schedule was going to be much slower, and I was going to be, moving at a much more, because I never move at a leisurely pace, but at least at a much more manageable pace. Whew. That has not happened. I have been moving at breakneck speed since the election, just as I was before the election. So that continues, and we're trusting God to continue to open doors and give me an opportunity to engage with the American people and encourage all of us to restore those fundamental principles that make America great. That's the new president, the second term president now, Trump 47. That's his motto, make America great again. Well, I believe that America is a great nation. And what he means by that is restore those principles to America that make America a great nation. America is a great nation, not because we're perfect people, but because the principles upon which we were founded and that have guided our culture for almost a quarter of a millennium have been better than any other nations that's ever existed, with the one exception of Israel, and they have not followed it, of course. For 2,500 years they didn't exist as a nation because they did not follow the precepts that God laid down for them, and as a result they were judged and driven from the land. But now God, according to prophetic predictions, God has restored Israel to their land and their enemies all around them. So, okay, let me not start free associating here and get all off the beaten path. Believe me, I will be coming back to Israel and talking about Israel frequently, because Israel is a very big priority for me personally, but it is also a big priority for our country, even though the Biden administration clearly doesn't know that, but the Trump administration definitely does. In fact, it's the first time I've said this. Let me say congratulations to my good friend, Governor Mike Huckabee, on becoming the first Christian ambassador to the state of Israel. That's a milestone, folks, because what it says is that it is one more step in helping the Jewish people understand that all the things done against the Jews and against primarily the Jews, but to some extent against Israel as well, in the name of Christianity, were lies and probably pretenders, people who don't know Christ at all. They don't know the Jewish Messiah. And so if you don't know the Jewish Messiah, it is easy to hate the Jewish people. But if you know the Jewish Messiah, it is impossible, and you know God's word, it is impossible for you to hate the Jewish people or hate Israel or condemn Israel or want to see Israel destroyed or annihilated or call Israel an apartheid nation and all this nonsense. It is impossible. And so I am glad that the Jewish people are going to find out through Mike Huckabee just how much we Bible-believing, born-again evangelical Christians love them, love the Jewish people, love Israel, how committed we are to Israel's survival, because that's really the issue. Israel surrounded by enemies who want to destroy it, and its greatest allies, although they have not known that in the past, because frankly, the people who held themselves out as Christians often did nothing but try to hurt Israel or destroy Israel. But the true believer loves Israel and loves the Jewish people. And Mike Huckabee is the paradigm of that principle. So I am excited about him being ambassador to Israel. In fact, I may be going to Israel soon. Haven't really decided yet, but I've been invited to go to Israel in a few months. And I would love to see him. In fact, the last time I was in Israel, I ran into him, because he said he's been to Israel over 100 times. Anytime you go to Israel, you're likely to run into Mike Huckabee, because he was there all the time. I don't know how this guy did it, but my goodness, I think 2 or 3 times a year he was in Israel. It's been doing that for years, maybe more than that. So you couldn't make a better choice for ambassador to Israel than former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. So praise God for that. Okay, all right. Well, with those things out of the way, come sort of free associating a little bit here, let me get to what I really want to talk about. But first, just a couple of highlights that are worthy of note, and then I'll get into the main topics. FBI Director Christopher Wray has resigned. He's leaving. Goodbye, good riddance. Never trusted the man. Had no confidence in him. As far as I am concerned, he is denigrated. He has presided over the denigration of the FBI, an illustrious law enforcement organization that has really been reduced to political hackery. And I think it's because, I don't know what to say about Wray, but I just find him to be a man who is lacking in conviction, lacking in integrity, lacking in a moral core. And that's why he was kind of all over the place. You know, I had my personal interaction with the FBI when I had a serious death threat come through and the FBI deemed it worthy of investigation They wanted to look into it. They didn't keep in touch with me. They didn't tell me anything. I mean, I had to literally send out my own investigators to find out what are they doing, what's going on. And I finally got the information, but it was never. I mean, they talked to me and told me they were opening an investigation. They never talked to me after that. I said, if I had been a liberal and some conservative was threatening me, threatening to shoot me, threatening to kill me, my goodness gracious, they would have been all over that. I'm convinced the top brass, oh, that's because it's probably white supremacists. But because I'm conservative, and as it turned out, it was a homosexual activist who had made a very serious and what the FBI deemed a credible threat on my life. Probably nothing to it. And as far as I know, the guy was never prosecuted. He should have been. I mean, you should be prosecuted for making a threat on someone's life. Because, you know, you can say, well, if it's not imminent, it doesn't really matter. Of course it matters, because we are a very mobile society. This person happened to live in Georgia. But how long does it take to get from Georgia to Virginia? What does it take to fly from Georgia to Virginia? What does it take to drive from Georgia to Virginia? I mean, I'm at my church every Sunday. All you got to do is walk in there and you know, carry out your business. We don't search people coming into the church. I mean, so we took it very, very seriously. That, by the way, folks, is when I started traveling with security. So, and that's why I do it. I don't do it because I think I'm a big shot, because I don't. I do it because for my own peace of mind, but even more importantly, my wife and family's peace of mind. Then I have somebody with me who is responsible for making sure that no crazy who's decided that they're obsessed with me and they think the world will be a better place if they take me out is going to have an easy time getting that done. So, but the FBI, they treated it like, I'm thinking, well, why even take it up? Because they treated it so cavalierly. And what I said to you yesterday, I said, my biggest challenge in life in terms of mistreatment has been because I'm a conservative, not because I'm black. Now, that's just the truth. I have faced more opposition, more doors slammed in my face, more opportunities shut off from me because I'm conservative, and virtually none because I'm black. Now, that's just the truth. Now, you know, I know all the black activists and crazies out there will dispute that. Oh, how can you say a thing like, but it's because it's the truth. The worst thing a person can have said about them, one of the worst things, certainly, not the worst perhaps, but one of the worst things a person can have said about them is to say they're racist. And people go out of their way, bend over backwards to avoid even the hint that they might be racist. But you know what? When it comes to hating conservatives, and particularly black conservatives, no restraint. Because they're the dregs of the earth. We black conservatives are traitors to our leftist saviors. And of course, we don't deserve to live. Be good if somebody shot one of us. Teach us a lesson. I mean, that's the mindset, and it's really rather sad. But at any rate, Christopher Wray's gone. See ya, and don't let the doorknob hit you on the way out. Looking forward to seeing what Kash Patel will do, assuming that he is confirmed. Looking forward to seeing an FBI that comes back to being a professional law enforcement agency rather than a bunch of political hacks who are and prima donnas, or like James Comey, a former communist. Yeah, that's the truth, folks. James Comey, perfect. That was the Freudian slip. James Comey, self-described, self-professed former communist. In an interview with New Yorker magazine, he said, well, I don't know. He said, I started out as a communist. He said, I don't know what I am now, but I guess I fit more as a Republican. I think he just said that just to because he thought it sounded good and he thought it would get people off his back to know he's a former communist. Because he said, I used to be way out on the left, now I'm way out on the right, please. So, at any rate, enough of that. I spent more time on that than I planned to. Let's see. Oh, Nancy Mace. Again, you know, these homosexual activists. Nancy Mace was attacked on Capitol Hill by one of these SPCG crazies. Remember, they call themselves LGBTQ. I have redubbed them SPCG, sexual perversion, child grooming. Sexual perversion, child grooming, SPCG. Not LGBT, SPCG, because that's what they are. They're sexually perverse, and they're trying to get to our children. So one of them attacked Nancy Mace. I'm going to tell you this story, by the way, to underscore this. And I got to keep an eye on my time so I don't step on my main two issues. So forgive me if you've heard this story before, but this was years ago when the first gay rights bill was making its way through Massachusetts. That's where I was living and ministering at the time. And I was in the forefront of fighting it and warning people that this was a slippery slope, that once you recognize sexual deviancy as a protected class, as if it's race or gender or nationality or religion, you recognize sexual deviancy, then where do you stop? In fact, let me just say this while I'm at it, because, you know, I really believe that sometimes I set out to talk about certain things and go different ways I didn't expect to go. And I really believe it's because I'm being led by the Holy Spirit. But here's my point. All the people, and some of them conservatives, who want to complain about guys playing on women's sports and saying that this notion that there's no difference between the genders is insane, it's crazy, we should not accept that. Well, let me just tell you this. The moment we accepted homosexuality as good, right, moral, as quote unquote, just merely a sexual orientation, we sign our own cultural death warrant. The moment we accepted that. So people who complain about that, who don't want to take a strong stand against homosexual marriage and homosexuality in general, as far as I'm concerned, are hypocrites. Because one is what leads to the other. Because once you knock down God's standards and you say, those aren't right. No. I remember one Fox News analyst years ago, and I was just so disappointed, was asked point blank, well, do you think that homosexuality is wrong? Oh, no. Claim to be a Christian, too. No. Basically lying to keep her job. Is a female. I won't even get into who it was, but lying to keep her job. She's not on the air now, by the way, so just so you don't think it was Ainsley Earhart or somebody else. It wasn't one of those. But you and I both know they have been silenced on that issue. So, but they want to talk about transgender as if it's a thing apart. It is not. It is the natural and logical evolution of once you eliminate God's standards and say those no longer apply, those aren't right. Well, then what are the standards? Well, you make them up as you go along. And the people who have the control of the propaganda machine are the ones who make them up. So first, it's homosexuality. I warned people about homosexual marriage when we were fighting the gay rights bill back in the 80s. Oh, by the way, I said a story. So let me come back to point A. So we were doing a press conference against this so-called gay rights bill. And there was a guy in the audience. We were in the state capitol at the time, and there was a whole, I would say 50, at least maybe 100 homosexual activists outside, and they were just shouting at the top of their lungs trying to drown out our press conference. We're here, we're queer, we're fabulous, get used to us. And they were just shouting that over and over and over again. And we were inside trying to hold a press conference. Well, when the time came for me to get up, for some reason, an activist who had kind of weaseled his way into our press conference charged the stage. When I got up to speak, he bolted from near the back and started running toward me. And security guards grabbed him. They saw him. grabbed him, wrestled him to the ground, and of course they placed him under arrest for disorderly conduct. And I went on with my comments. That guy was later appointed by Republican Governor Bill Weld to be his liaison to the sexual deviants. But at any rate, I said that simply to say, these people are always accusing conservatives of being violent and all this. But we Christians, at least, that's the last thing we're interested in. We will defend ourselves. We will defend our families. We will defend our homes. There's no question about that. We will defend the innocent, like Daniel Penny did. But we're not interested in hurting anybody. We're not interested in attacking anybody. We're not interested in assassinating somebody because we don't like what they think or what they say or what they represent or what job they have. We don't think that way, because the Bible says that you do not overcome evil with evil, and that's evil. And you can't take the high moral ground and then say, but now let's kill the people who we don't agree with. No true Christian is going to think that way. But that's the way these people think, because they don't have the love of God. They don't have the morality of God. They don't have the word of God. They don't have anything that anchors them to any kind of decency. And push come to shove, they'll do pretty much anything. Now, I can't speak for every homosexual, obviously. There are conservative homosexuals who I like to see things a little differently, but their thinking is not rooted in God's word, because if it were, they wouldn't be homosexuals. Okay, all right. So Nancy Mace I think they're prosecuting the person who attacked her. She did get actually physically accosted. That's the other thing. Attacking a woman. It's so punkish. You want to show you're angry. If you just have that much of the devil in you that you've got to throw down, how about throwing down on a man who's capable of defending himself against another man? But frankly, they're too punkish for that. So they go after this petite woman and beat her up. It's disgusting. Okay, let me get to the two issues that I really wanted to talk about. One more thing before I get to those. The incoming chairman of the Hispanic Caucus is decrying Trump's efforts to overturn birthright citizenship. I want to tell you, as an American of African ancestry, I am completely in favor of overturning birthright citizenship. Remember, the birthright citizenship that is set forth in the 14th Amendment was intended to give Americans of African ancestry whose ancestors had come here as slaves, since their citizenship was in question, absolute citizenship. No question about it. In other words, your ancestors were brought here, you were born here, you are an American. It was not intended to create a birthright citizenship industry where China and Syria and Iran and North Korea and who knows what other monstrous regimes could send pregnant women here, keep them here while they have a baby, and now they're anchored to our country by a baby that's an American citizen. And as I said, the Chinese can then take that baby back home, indoctrinate that baby with a bunch of communist nonsense, and then send that baby back here to infiltrate our country, because after all, that baby is an American citizen. I mean, this is a game. It's a joke. And frankly, it's an insult to my ancestors who were ultimately rewarded with the acknowledgement that these are Americans. These former Africans are Americans. That's why you all have heard me say, I am not an African American. I'm an American. I'm an American. I'd love to visit Africa one day. My ancestral DNA says my ancestors came primarily from West Africa, around Ghana, the Ivory Coast, and a little bit a little bit south of that as well, but primarily from that region. I'd love to go visit those countries. I'm not interested in staying there. I love America. My ancestors have been in this country for over 200 years, probably going back further than that. My great grandfather was born in Virginia in 1798, the year before George Washington died. So I've got a little American pedigree. Now, if his parents were already living here, in other words, if they had already grown up here, because of course by that time, by 1798, slavery had really been practiced. Intergenerational slavery, I'm talking about where you inherit your slave status, had really been practiced at that point for about 150 years. So I don't know how far back beyond that. I don't have any way of knowing beyond that how far back my ancestors go. But it could be 300 years. I'm an American. But this birthright citizenship stuff has got to stop. And as you all know, when I ran for president, I proposed a constitutional amendment that would end it. And it very simply says, I don't have it in front of me to read it, but it very simply says that you are not an American citizen by virtue of birth unless you have at least one biological parent who is already an American citizen. Period. So you get a Chinese national comes here, a woman comes here, she drops a baby here, she's not a citizen, that baby's not a citizen. If that baby's father's not a citizen, that baby's not a citizen. The only way you are born a citizen of the United States of America is if at least one biological parent is also an American citizen. Other than that, you're just a foreigner who happened to be born in our territory. And I really think the American people are ready for a constitutional amendment to say that. And I know the left would scream like hit dogs over that. I mean, you could hear it now, because their pathway to power is to bring all these illegal immigrants, these illegal aliens, forgive me, they're not immigrants, these illegal aliens and invaders into our country to try to create political hegemony somewhere down the future where you have enough people who are enslaved to the Democrat Party that they can control the national elections completely and totally with overwhelming voters, because they brought them in from all over the world and then said, now reward us because we got you in here. Now reward us by keeping us in power. And we'll give you cell phones and hotel rooms and goodies, and, we'll treat you like good slaves. Just make sure you do our bidding. Just don't forget who rewarded you. Don't forget whose plantation you live on. And we'll take care of you. And then they'll turn the whole country into the plantation. That's what Marxism does. Marxism is nothing but a slave system, folks. It's just a glorified slave system. It turns everybody into a slave of the state. All right. Finally got all that out of the way. Now let's come to the main two issues. Wow. I'll tell you. Woo! The assassination of this healthcare executive. I don't want to talk too long about this, but I do want to make one point. There are people all over the country, from the left, of course, who are hailing this guy as a hero. It was great. He killed a healthcare CEO, United Healthcare CEO. He killed him, Brian Thompson. And they're hailing this as some great thing. The McDonald's worker who identified him and called the police, they're saying that person is a villain. That person's getting threats. That McDonald's getting threatened, I should say. I don't think they know who the person is, but that McDonald's getting threatened because that's where the rat works. The way they're putting it. I mean, folks, this is the moral insanity you get when you reject God. See, this is what I mean. These people are rejoicing over the murder of a man who, I understand he had his share of problems, but I understand he was under investigation for misappropriation of funds and all that. But that's not a death penalty offense. And if he's guilty of that, that would be determined by a prosecution and a trial and a verdict by a jury of his peers. That's how we work those things like that out in our country. We don't walk up to a person on the street because we don't think this is a good person, or we think this person's done some bad things that we consider to be bad, and just shoot him in the back and kill him. And you got these lefties who are singing the praises of this guy. This is crazy. But here's the point I want to make about this. Why is everybody so upset about health care when I thought Barack Obama's Obamacare solved all our health care problems? Right? I mean, Barack Obama wasn't president that long ago that we don't remember. This is the panacea. Obamacare. I thought all our problems are solved. The Affordable Health Care Act. I mean, these lefties, because look, they simply do not want private health care because they don't want private anything. And Elizabeth Warren, I mean, she needs to be dope slapped, metaphorically speaking, of course, for actually insinuating, hinting that this murderer's actions are the logical response to being, her words, being pushed too far. What does that even mean? Push too far. What? I mean, folks, this is why I don't understand how any Christian can be a Democrat. I don't. Well, I know why they are Democrats. I don't understand. Well, let me retract that. I do understand it, but they're so far off that it just almost defies any kind of reason or rationality. They do it. They support. If there is such a thing as a true Christian who's a Democrat, which I have a hard time believing, but if it's true, it is because there's a spiritual stronghold in their lives and they're blinded to the sin of what they're doing. I mean, in the same way that a Christian can get hooked on alcohol, a Christian can get hooked on pornography, a Christian can get hooked on gambling. It's possible. Because once you open the door to that stuff into your life, it can get a stronghold in your life and become an addiction that you then need the power of God to break in your life. And that's what this is. This is a spiritual deception and addiction that is a spiritual stronghold in the life of any Christian. Again, to the extent that any true Christians are actual supporters of and voters for the Democrat Party. I have to believe some of these people who go to church and vote Democrat are indeed Christians, but they are profoundly deceived. Profoundly deceived. Because you don't hear any hue and cry out of the Democrat Party saying, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, we don't even hint at justifying assassination. Jimmy Kimmel apparently did a whole riff on all the people who were celebrating over the murder of this guy. That's wicked. That is wicked. It's demonic. And again, I don't even see why it would be necessary since Obamacare solved all of our health care problems. Isn't that what we were told? Okay, that's one thing. Now let me come to the last thing that I want to address. These drones over New Jersey. I've got a number of things to say about this in the time that we've got left. First of all, does anybody buy this stuff that nobody knows what they are? Does anybody buy that? With our technological sophistication, our spyware, our communications ability and network, does anybody buy the idea that nobody knows where these are coming from? I don't buy that for a minute. And you know what, folks? If that were true, we got bigger problems than we thought. Because imagine this. If we don't know, that means it is entirely possible that a foreign enemy is testing us both militarily, technologically, and militarily, but is also psychologically. This is psychological warfare if it is a foreign entity. And I cannot believe, and by the way, it is a contradiction in terms of say, we don't know what this is. We have no idea, but we know it's not a foreign thing. Well, wait a minute. You say you don't know what it is, you have no idea, but you know. Well, those are two contradictory things. Both of those can't be true. Because if you're saying you know it's not a foreign country or foreign enemy, if you know, then you do know something. So which is it? Do you know nothing about what this is? Or do you know enough to be able to reassure the American people that it is not a foreign threat? I think they're lying. When I say they, I mean, I think the federal government is lying through their teeth. And let me tell you something. One congressperson claimed that they have it on very good authority that these drones are sponsored by Iran, that has a mothership somewhere off the coast. Now, that may seem a little far-fetched, but it's a mothership somewhere off the coast. Now, some of these drones apparently are very, very large. I mean, one guy hovered over one of them. He said, this thing was, I mean, it's not like these little drones that you and I in fact, I wanted a drone myself because I want to play around with it and fly it over some wooded areas and see what kind of animals I see and all that. But these things are gigantic. Some people have said that some of them are as big as cars. And not only that, but they're so numerous. I've heard estimates of 50 to 100 to maybe even hundreds of them being unleashed in the skies over New Jersey. Are they only over New Jersey? Now, look, I know I'm in the realm of speculation here, and I'm not saying I know something, and therefore I'm giving you some sort of inside information because I don't have that. But I do have a little bit of common sense. And I do know you can't convince me that nobody knows what this is. You can't convince me of that. And again, if that's true, we are in bigger trouble than we thought. Because that means our government is completely incompetent. Because if they don't know these things, for all we know, then they could be armed. Apparently these started in November. And we're a third of the way through December. And we don't know anything about them. And I've heard sizes from as much as 6 feet in diameter to as big as a car. And we don't know anything about them. So let me just deal with this whole issue of Iran. Biden, after the election, released another $10 billion in assets that Iran could access after Trump got elected. Now, I raised this yesterday. Why in the world would you do that? Why would you do that? They're avowed enemies of the United States of America. I'm talking about the regime now. I would hope we would be able to reach some sort of rapprochement with the Iranian people, but that's another matter. But this regime, this Ayatollah, radical Islamic terrorist importing regime hates us, would love to be able to destroy us and destroy Israel, by the way, as well. And we've released another 10 billion, we meaning our elected representative. Of course, I didn't vote for him. And I'm probably none of you watching me voted for him, but he's released another $10 billion in assets, giving them access to, so that they can further promote their desire to destroy Israel and destroy America. And then these drones come up. Now, I'm not saying that these drones are in fact Iranian, but you know what this reminds me a little bit of? Remember when we were all speculating that there was good reason to believe that COVID came from the Wuhan laboratory? And we were told by the Democrat Party and the left in general, you're a bunch of conspiracy theorists and it never came from the Wuhan lab and that's a conspiracy theory. And Fauci now denies that he ever said that, but he was debunking it too. He's a liar and a snake. And we were told, oh, no. You all are way off. You're wearing tinfoil hats and you're paranoid and you're crazy and it didn't come from Wuhan lab. Now, the question I ask is, why are you so quick in jumping to the defense of a dictatorial, totalitarian, communist regime and assuring us that they would never have produced this terrible virus that made many people sick and killed many people? Why would you go out of your way to defend them? I mean, I remember Anthony Fauci saying, those are reputable scientists at the Wuhan lab. They're communists. And they're under the control of the Chinese Communist Party. Don't tell me they're reputable. By that alone, they're not reputable. Because number one, even if they had any impulse to decency, they're going to do what they're told at risk of their lives. So please, ply me not with, oh, these are reputable scientists in the Wuhan laboratory. Give me a break. I hear echoes of the same thing with these drones. It's not Iran. It's not Iran. It's not Iran. It's not Iran. After Biden's released $10 billion to Iran to do who knows what with. And I understand that they are doing some work on drone warfare. And that this may be one of the reasons why this congressman and some people in Congress suspect that this really is Iran playing a game of military and psychological, technological and psychological warfare, because they haven't attacked anybody or done anything with these drones. But look, if we can have drones flying over American territory and we don't know who they are, and that's the truth, we are like lambs to the slaughter. We're baring our necks and saying to the butcher, just cut our throats. So look, this is why prayer is so important. Because there really are things, many things in life, that are simply beyond the capacity of you and I to do anything about them on an immediate basis. I mean, these things are flying over the heads of people in New Jersey. And then, as I said, who knows where else they may be flying. That's the only place it's been reported. So, again, I forgive me, I don't mean to speculate. And I don't mean to suggest that it is Iran, but I am simply calling attention to the analogy that when many of us suspected that COVID came from the Wuhan laboratory, we were shouted down and told we were a bunch of conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hat wearers, and we needed to shut up because that wasn't even viable. And now we know, probably at this point, 99% certain that it came from the Wuhan laboratory. So we'll see where these drones have come from and what they actually prove out to be. I trust we will see, but I don't trust what I'm being told right now. That is for sure. Well, look, folks, stay in prayer, stay in faith. We are on the right trajectory with President Trump coming in, and I am confident that we're going to see some dramatic improvements for the benefit of this nation. And that's what we want. That's why I despise Joe Biden, because as far as I'm concerned, Joe Biden was only interested in one thing, Joe Biden. And you heard he said he hopes that Donald Trump is able to preserve the great economy he's inheriting. I mean, that alone is proof that the man has dementia. Really, it just, again, just like for Christopher Wray, goodbye, good riddance, see you, wouldn't want to be you. You know? Pray for you, hope that you know, he probably needs to be put in jail for selling influence to all these foreign entities and enemies. You wonder what this whole release of all these assets for Iran is all about. And by the way, you know, Russia is in league with Iran, and some of the money that Hunter Biden got, he got from Russian oligarchs. So, you know, there are a lot of questions that are left to be answered. And I hope some of these questions will be answered so we make it harder for crooks like Joe Biden and the Biden family to use the American people to line their own pockets while selling us down the river. I trust we will make that harder in the future. Well, that's going to do it for today. Now, look, I will not be with you tomorrow because I will be at the National Association of Christian Lawmakers Conference in Phoenix, Arizona, or Friday because that's tomorrow is Friday. It was Saturday. Well, actually, I don't come on Saturday. But I may Instagram or TikTok something from the conference if I have an opportunity to do that, so to bring you into it. So stand by for that. But in the meantime, you know what to do, folks. Listen, in spite of all the craziness that by the way, they're going crazy now, trying to do everything in their power to try to set the Trump administration up for failure, or by implementing policies that they can't undo. They don't know Donald Trump. So that's why you and I, while we are elated at the outcome of the election, we cannot rest on our laurels, okay? We have to continue to stand up, to step up, to speak up, and to refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. This election proved that, because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.